Mr. Platinum. Mr. Platinum. Good morning, everyone. Can you all hear me? Hello, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, sure.
Oh, all right. Thank you so much, Mr. Gabriel. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to class. I think it's 12 on the dot. That is 12 o'clock West African time. Thank you, everyone, for joining, both mentors and mentees. For the mentees, please, for the mentees that are already on the call, I want to encourage us to reach out to our co-mentees, letting them know that class has started. Welcome to the Tipsy Mentorship and Internship Program, everyone, for the Artificial Intelligence and Emerging Technology class. Like I said, we are currently in week two of the first and second quarter of 2026. My name is Dennis Williams, and I'll be helping out with moderating this particular session. So not to waste any time, right, I would want to us to go straight to introducing our mentors for today's class. Because some of the mentors that will be present today, we read their profile last week, so we will not be going through the process of reading every profile, except maybe when we have a new mentor to introduce. So that's the way we're going to be doing it. After introducing our mentors, we take mentors presentations first, then we take mentees presentation next, feedback from the mentors, and then feedback from the mentors, and then questions and answers. So please, for the mentees, we hope that we are able to have an interactive session. For those who need to get ready for presentation, please make sure you are ready for presentations once you are called up. So, like I said, let's get straight to introducing our mentors. First and foremost, we are expecting in today's class Mr. Ridwan Badmos. Mr. Ridwan Badmos, we went through his profile in the last class, so we'll not be going through it again. But thank you so much, Mr. Ridwan, for volunteering to be a mentor on this program. We look forward to having you, and we hope he is able to join us soon. Our second mentor for today that we're expecting in the session is Professor Francesco Lapenta. Prof was actively in class in the last class. He ran us through the introduction to artificial intelligence and emerging technology, the ethical part of it. And he shared some very, very key and important points that I hope that those who were available for class the last session took serious note of. He really highlighted some major points on the future progression of AI and where we currently are as individuals and the skills we need to learn to incorporate and to imbibe to make us relevant in in the nearest future or the future that is already now. Right. So thank you so much, Prof, for choosing to also be here this week. We look forward to having you during the session. Next, we have Mr. Gabriel Udo, also a mentor from the last class, who ran us through some of the introduction into AI ethics, what's introduction into AI, right? What it entails, how it affects us and where we currently are with AI. So thank you so much, Mr. Gabriel, for joining us and already being on the call. We are happy to have you around. Last but not least, in the session today, we will be having Mrs. Maya Sharma. Mrs. Maya Sharma is an AI policy researcher atheists, um, ethi- atheists, and then also researching intercultural digital ethics and governance of AI-driven policies with an MSc from Oxford Insurance Institute. Currently, she works as an AI consultant in India, providing digital transformation strategy in climate NGO. Maya has over a decade of expertise across AI policy, diversity and inclusion, and digital transformation. She serves as an AI expert member in the Global Partnership on Artificial Intelligence as part of the Future of Work Council and an AI advisory board member in the tech community of food. That is FIDUCAN. That's Fooditam. Fooditam. Thank you so much, Ma, for opting to come on board in today's session. We look forward to getting to hear you share your thoughts on the topic for today. Sorry, I forgot to mention how we'll be discussing ethics, bias, and regulation of AI and emerging technology. So that will be our topic today, and that's what our mentors will be running us through today. I guess if you're ready for class like I am, right, let's get straight to the business of the day. So, um, I can see we still have quite just a few people available in class. Please, I want to encourage us for the mentees, kindly do well to drop the drop a notice in your subgroups, letting your colleagues know that we have started session. Thank you very much as you comply. So, like I said, we'll not be wasting any time. We'll not be wasting any time. I can see we already have Mr. Gabriel on the call. Thank you so much, Mr. Gabriel, for being here with us. So we just want to give you the opportunity to run us through an introduction into the class. So far, you are our only mentor in the session, and we hope maybe as the class progresses, we'll have other mentors come on board. So, Mr. Gabriel, over to you, sir. We want to hear your take and what you have prepared for us in the session as regards artificial intelligence ethics, regulation, governance, and the likes within that space. Thank you so much, sir.
All right. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear, sir.
Okay. Just wanted to confirm that. Okay. Thank you. Good afternoon for those that I've just gotten into the afternoon. Sorry about my what's happening with the internet. We are having some I'm not sure, we're getting some central city alarms here. We don't know what it is, so we're trying not to panic. But whenever it comes like that, things just trip off. So in case it happens again. And thank you for the invitation. Last week, I remember I had mentioned that I was going to, try to have a presentation today. It's also easier for me. And then I remembered this morning that, oh God, I didn't do that. So I had to put something. I have lots of ideas, and I hope I'll be able to, I have all of them on the slide, so it's easier for you to also catch up. And I hope I don't miss out with anything. Now, today the topic was a little, I think we spread it too wide. I saw ethics, bias, and regulation of artificial intelligence and emerging technology. Usually you discuss bias under ethics or under regulation because they are human rights laws and there are ethical issues around the subject of bias and discrimination. So I choose to go with the artificial intelligence and emerging technologies. Then we'll just look generally at regulatory and ethical perspectives. I recall previously, I'm not sure because last week I didn't stay till the end. And I think this is a recurring problem. Many times we tend to not understand some specific concepts, how it works. I'll give you an example, and we'll discuss this in the course of my presentation. I'll try to keep it very short, but I think these things are quite important so we know what specifically we are referring to. Because it's one thing to just talk about bias without understanding how bias truly works or how it actually comes about. The general definition of bias is somebody is cheated or somebody is treated differently from the others. Either there's an advantage or there's a disadvantage. But why AI has this, or why emerging technologies seem to support or promote the conceptualization of bias is something that will require you understanding how algorithms work or how data is processed. So today I will, why is the slide not moving? Okay. Um, is our second session. I'll just do a random because I've seen your presentation. At least I saw one today. I hope the other one is also as nice, and they are very interesting things. So I try to look around, not specific things that have already been talked about in the slide that I saw or that are probably going to be discussed by the other mentors. And today we'll first have some kind of introduction, just to understand AI policy, understand what some terminologies and technology, law, and ethics. And then I'll give an overview of AI technologies, more like part of the introduction. Then we'll look at legal principles. We'll look at the major ethical issues. Not all of them. Like I said, I will just get through them. And then we'll do a little brainstorming, something about how bias is or what bias would mean in specific systems. Maybe not brainstorms because you're doing presentation, but it's something I would like you to go home with. And then I'll do some conclusion. But I'll introduce something more practical that, again, you probably have to think about it when you're away from the class. Not part of this, but I've discovered over time that we spend a lot of times understanding the principles. And when we're required to actually provide a solution, right, then we're stuck because you know what the law says, you know what the law does not say, you know what the risk is, you know what the problem is, but you do not know how to use law or policy, to fix the problem. And one of the ways of doing this is to get involved in, drafting policy briefs. If you are to, member of a legislature in your constituency, for instance, tells you, yeah, we are discussing this issue and we learned you're an expert in this. So can you have a policy brief for us? So it gives us a direction as to what policy should look like. We're going to very quickly just look at that, and I hope I had enough time to go through it. All right. First, we've gone through this, the transformative power of artificial intelligence, and this will explain why it's important that we regulate it. Prior to now, we've had other ideologies that determined the direction of society, and we've had religion, and all sorts of things. And then now we've had technology, and more recently we've had the emergence of technology and the emergence of artificial intelligence and other forms of autonomy. Now, these usually would raise the question, okay, if this comes with advantage to society, why are we so worried about regulating it? Well, yeah, first of all, there's a lot of risks that it comes with. The risk of bias. Again, some of these risks are provided for, are sort of covered by regulations. Some are not covered. Some are not properly covered. That brings us to the idea behind having ethical principles that are not, there are no strict regulations covering some
Please, I can't hear anything, or is it just me?
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. It seems Mr. Gabriel's network has been is having some issues. So please let's just give him a minute. I'll try to see if I can get through to him. Yeah.
Okay,
So
sir.
let's begin. Mr. Gabriel, are you back with us, sir?
Yeah. Can you still hear me? Sorry. Like I mentioned, there's something going on. Can you hear me? Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir, we can hear you on your screen.
Okay, yeah. Once it goes, it will trip back almost immediately. Sorry about that. All right. So I was talking about job displacement and the idea that yes, we've had technologies that we had this complaint as far back as when the calculators came or whatever. We've had technologies as far back as the early 1920s. And because it didn't take jobs then, or it just changed this to that, we're not going to have that. Yeah, but now artificial intelligence is a special kind of technology that requires, does a lot more, right? I wouldn't want to go into that. I'd leave it for some time in the discussion. And then we have the risk of autonomy in the case of armed conflict. Not just in armed conflict, we have problems with autonomy and the determination of accountability for AI systems, then the fact that it causes skill degradation and so on and so forth. So these are the reasons we need to regulate artificial intelligence to a large extent to reduce the risks or the probability of this risk, or to even completely cut them off. Now, we have different regulation approaches. The European Union has this safety first approach. They call it a risk-based approach. So if you have time, you can look at the AI Act and you can look at how the classification of risks is done into 4 different strata. And then and then the United States, we've seen in the last 2 years, especially, lots of deregulation and private investment in artificial intelligence, and also what they would call the pro-innovation approach, like the United Kingdom also has. And the main challenges in policies in regulating artificial intelligence is the question about accountability, number one. How do we place accountability for harms done by AI? And then the other one is what's the balance between safety and innovation? How do we allow innovation without risking the safety? Or how do we not over-regulate to a point that innovation is now difficult? Then the idea of explainability. Of course, we talk about the black boxes. When there's a black box, how do we now explain what happens? If the concept of transparency and explainability requires that we should be able to tell what happens inside the system, how do we explain things inside the black box, which we don't know what happens in there? I'll just look very quickly at terminologies. The first one is artificial intelligence. I will not go, this definition is from the European Union's AI Act, and it looks to me like a very inclusive definition. I like to use it. An AI system, first, you know that it's a machine-based system. Secondly, you know that it exhibits its varying levels of autonomy. So we don't just have everything AI. There are different levels. Some are more autonomous than others. Some are capable, like the autonomous cars. If you drive a Tesla S, for instance, and it has some autonomous capabilities, or if you're using an AI agent in your system, there are levels of autonomy. Then it exhibits adaptiveness after deployment. That means you deploy it today, it adapts, it learns. That's a machine learning capability. And then it's able to infer from objectives. So if you tell it, this is what I want you to do, it can infer from something, an instruction you had given previously, an objective, and can act accordingly. Or it has the outputs it could be predictions, can be a content, can be recommendations, can be decisions. And then these decisions eventually influence physical or virtual environment. Then I'd like to talk very quickly. I don't have the time, but this is something that I think is one of the most important conceptualizations within the area of artificial intelligence. Why I'm going through this is that before we talk about bias, it's important that we understand what happens, how things happen inside the system. So bias is not just the outcome. I don't believe in us knowing all the problems. Yes, you can read the risks in a book, but the ability to tell what ethical principles should be applied to fix a particular problem would require that you know what has happened inside the system. There's machine learning, which is a subfield of AI. It's one of the most important components of artificial intelligence. The algorithms allow the system to learn from data, either existing data or from either data that is being fed with or data that it has learned. For instance, in the case of web scraping, there's supervised learning. You label the data, put it in the system, so you supervise. It's easier to tell the outcome. There is unsupervised learning, so you just throw data in there. It learns from that. Most of the things we use today are carrying out unsupervised learning. And then there's reinforcement learning. If you use ChatGPT, it's using you to learn. So it's learning from your feedback. Each time you say, oh, thank you for that answer, it learns that was a good answer. Now there's also deep learning. Deep learning is that aspect of artificial intelligence, of machine learning, that uses neural networks like what you have in your brain. So it's a lot more scientific, but it learns from the existing data. It's a deeper level of machine learning. Then you could take a look at this at your spare time, and then you could learn one or two things from there. Now, the key legal principles, you probably would have seen this in 1001 places. There's transparency and explainability. These are the problems. So AI must be transparent, must be explainable. Somebody must be responsible or accountable for the AI system. So there has to be a human being behind it. Privacy and data protection, safety and security, right? This is something that's very high on the reason why we need to regulate artificial intelligence. And ethics usually looks at some of these things, like what is it safe? Does it secure is the system secure? Then intellectual property. There are many cases, but this is the one that I like most. And the problem of fairness, and your AI system must be fair and it shouldn't discriminate. Then major ethical issues, again, fairness comes. Like I mentioned, there's an overlap sometimes between ethics and law, because the foundation of regulation in society generally is either history or ethics or culture, whatever name you call it. But in most instances, the moral values of the society or the ethics that is observed in a society would form the framework for regulation. Laws don't just come. They look at what we usually do, culture, customs, what are the ethics of society? And that's why it differs from society to society. In this other part of the world, it's ethical, unquote, to have same gender relationships. But if you come down south to Nigeria, that is completely unethical. So ethical is more adjustable when compared to regulations, because law itself is stable in many instances. And this brings the problem of when you copy regulations, because you're copying the ethical values of another society. That's maybe a topic for another day. So we have ethics, or we have fairness, we have the problem of transparency. Your system must be explainable and understandable, not to you, but to the people that are using the system. Also, there's accountability. We have to find somebody at the back. If something goes wrong, we have to find someone to hold responsible. The idea of data protection. My personal data must be safe. You have to prevent the misuse of sensitive information. And then there's a concept of human control, which is mostly used in very risky systems. There has to be a human behind the system. And the control must be meaningful, not just having a human, a rubber stamp person at the back that presses enter and delete without understanding the impact of the system. Then, like I mentioned, this is something you could look at. You could do the brainstorm when you're back home, the bias and discrimination problem. Now, if you look at this, you will see artificial intelligence just has these functions inside. There's the model, there's data, and then there's the people, right? Artificial intelligence is a function of its machine learning capabilities being used by data and algorithms. So there's data, and there's the algorithm, which is the instruction as to how the data is used. And then there's the machine learning functionality. So AI is just a function of all that. So bias could happen in any of these places. It could be algorithmic bias. It could be that the data is okay, but then there's some instruction that maybe somebody tells the system, yeah, I know the data says this, but focus on men or focus on people from a certain area. I know you've been trained with CVs from 50 men and 50 women, but for this role, focus on the CV. So this is how an algorithm is just a set of instructions. So even when the data is okay, you could have bias in the algorithm. Secondly, even when the algorithm is okay, do your job properly, you could have bias in the data itself, because the data could be like we had this, I think, in 2015 in an Amazon hiring system where the CVs that were used to train the system were just from males. So the data, the algorithm now learns the probability of its choosing a woman, or it's making identifying a CV that has the gender female was very low, right? So you could have bias in the data. You could have bias in the algorithm. You could also read this, that algorithmic bias is not just about race. It could be about gender. It could bring a lot of issues. It could come with a lot of problems, right? For example, here, this I think they fixed this by now, but it's still there, that heart attacks are really misdiagnosed in women or underdiagnosed because the systems were trained in male data sets and so on and so. So you can see the impact of biases is not just in the job or anything. It could be life-threatening, and this is quite important. So maybe you could look at this, just read through this after the class. And then in conclusion, I mention here of the fact that responsible innovation is very possible via policy, right? But on the other hand, what are the things to look out for? You could look at this document from the World Economic Forum, and it talks about how the 3 dimensions of having responsible innovation. First is you look at the strategy and value creation. Have a long-term responsible AI strategy and a vision. So don't just plan that, okay, by next month, plan like 5-10 years ahead. Then have a data governance structure. Your innovation should go in line with data governance is very important. Then let your system be resilient, and let there be the processes in that, let the design itself have processes that are resilient. Then there's governance and accountability. Have a system, have a structure in place, a governance structure in your organization, in your country, in your state, or wherever AI is being used. So have government leaders, have people that are, responsible for the governance of AI, accountable for the use of AI. Then have a risk management system, whether it's systematic and it has to be context specific, because for one system, the risk differs to another system. Let there be transparency in your system. This is a no-brainer. Always be transparent. Then in the development and use of AI, let innovations have design as default. I've mentioned that also here. They are in design principles, which means you try to create ethical principles, you build them into the system. I hope if somebody doesn't understand this, you can ask me when it's at the question and answer session. Then let's always scale with technology enablement, right? Understand how technology works, and then increase literacy. This is one of the biggest problems we have so far. People don't understand how AI systems work. And I say this because I've worked on projects recently that I realized that people are just using systems they don't understand. So people need to be trained. Sometimes regulations insist that people have to be trained on this. Anticipate risks. Let your policy anticipate that this risk is going to be there, whether it is already there or not. See it coming. Involve all the stakeholders in the process of policy making, in making regulations. Let everybody that don't just sit in the government house and draft, go to the people that use these technologies and ask them, what are your problems? How can this affect you? I've already talked about ethics in design and other in design principles. Build this into the system in such a way that it's almost not possible to use the system wrongly. Then adaptable governance. Your structure should be adjustable. The EU AI Act leaves way for amendments. It makes the process not complicated. Well, people think it's complicated, but I don't think it is. And finally, this is more like an afterthought when I saw that there's a problem in we knowing what the problem is, but we don't know how to propose a solution. And just in your own spare time, you could look at this, try to draft a policy brief. Maybe pick an issue. Let's say we want to ban facial recognition in public places, or we have to regulate AI-generated content on social media for whatever reason. Or there are many issues with artificial intelligence. Then pick a template rather. The template should come there. The major things that should be there. The problem should be described. Then what regulations are already available. Then propose what should change in the existing regulation, or what should be added, or what should form a new regulation. Then who are going to get impacted by this, whether it's companies, citizens, or just government. Okay, so I think I've a little bit overshot my 20 minutes by a bit. Thank you, and I'll be here for questions. I look forward to listening to your presentations. Right, Dennis?
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Gabriel, for helping us do justice to the introduction to the topic. We sincerely do appreciate your inputs into the discussion. I think some of the key things that you highlighted, based off of what I could pick, you started off by introducing us into what AI is, from the basics to telling us the different models of AI and where the kind of tasks and activities AI carry out. And then you also introduced us into the ethical issues with AI, bias issues, how to go around regulations, certain regulations, and also the key people involved in them. So thank you so much, Mr. Gabriel. I trust and I hope that just the way I listened and I was able to piece together from everything that you said, the mentees also were able to do that from their end. Sorry, I'm not sharing my video yet. I'm still having some issues with my device, so I am trying to get on board in such a way that I'll be able to share my video. So far, we have just Mr. Gabriel on the call. Our other mentors are currently indisposed, and we may not necessarily be able to get a hold of them in the session today. But irrespective, we trust that with the discussion and what we've already started in class, and with presentation from the mentees, we will be able to still dive a little deeper into the topic, and the questions and answers, a lot of clarity will come into the topic for today. So in today's class, unfortunately, we'll be having just one presentation. I think there were some issues around group one, so they couldn't really come up with their presentation as a team. But we have group two ready with their presentation, and we'll be taking group two's presentation. So please, the group presenter for group two, if you are available and if you are ready, in the next 10 to 15 minutes, please can you kindly share your slides, share your screen, and let's start your presentation. Do we have the presenter for group two in class? Please, can you kindly step in? Grace, please, if you can. Hello, Grace, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you, sir.
Okay, or who is making presentation on behalf of the team?
Sorry, sir, there are two groups. So I think I'm group one and group two for presentation. So I don't know which group specifically now.
Sorry, is it group one that is presenting or group two?
Group two, we are taking presentation from group two.
Oh, but I thought group one presenter is available.
Your group, I noticed your group sending your presentation. If your presentation is ready, please, you can also take it.
Yes, there's someone for group one, sir, and I believe he joined the call. I don't know.
Okay.
I'll try calling him.
Okay, so
I'm presenting for group two.
all right, so while group one is trying to support our presentation, we can take presentation from group two. Mr. Yusuf, please, you can go ahead and share your screen.
Okay, sir. So basically, we want to present on ethics, bias, and regulations of artificial intelligence. So our own main focus on this topic is basically the governance frameworks, data protection, and accountability in global context. Sorry, can everybody hear me, please?
We can hear you, but we cannot see your slides. If you need assistance with sharing the slides, you can just let me know. Let me do that for you.
Yes, sir. Please kindly let me do that because I'm using the phone, so I can't really share it.
Okay. So please just let me know when you need me to change the screen, the slides.
You can actually help me do it now, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So like I said, just let me know when you need me to go to the next screen or to the next slide. Sorry.
Oh, okay. So basically, we're talking about AI governance and regulation overview of major policies. Then we have the European Union AI Act. Then we have the US guidelines. Then we have the African policy and African policy efforts data protection laws and ethical accountability for AI developers. So basically, when we're talking about AI governance, we say AI governance refers to the frameworks and policies guiding how AI is developed and used responsibly. It balances innovation with safety, ethics, and human rights. So what this basically means is that according to our last class, the our mentors, they give us like examples and scenarios, and they were able to tell us that okay, this AI, despite the fact that it is an advancement, technological advancement, so despite the fact that it has advantages, there are also some disadvantages attached to it. So disadvantages attached to it, then how can we control it? This is why there has to be a legal framework as regards AI advancement and technological advancement. So basically, this is what the AI governance entails in this regard. So when we're talking about the global approach, so ordinarily there is no general law in respect of AI, but then there are some regional laws like the European Union AI Act, which is a very strict and legally binding regulation. It categorizes AI systems by risk. So when we're talking about the European Union AI Act, this is like one of the most comprehensive and legally binding AI acts that has been in existence. It was enacted in 2024, and it adopts a risk-based regulatory architecture, classifying AI systems into 4 tiers according to the severity of potential harm they may cause. So basically, this act divides or systematize AI systems into 4 tiers according to the potential harm they may cause. So what are these 4 tiers? So we have number one, we have unacceptable. We have number one, unacceptable risk. Then we have high risk. Then we have limited risk and minimal risk. Those are the 4 tiers that the AI Act is regulating. Sorry, please, are we following?
Yes.
Yes, we're following.
I just want to confirm if everybody can hear me. Thank you very much. So when we're talking about the unacceptable risk, so we say these are risks that are banned from that is these are AI risks that are banned. That is, it should not be in existence and people should not make use of it. So an example of this unacceptable risk is social scoring. Then we also have that's the number one. Then we have high risk. High risk. These ones their risk are high, but then there is a strict requirement that has to be followed. So as regards this, then we have employment, law enforcement, health. That is AI in this field or in this regard. They are high risk, but then they are not strictly prohibited, but there is a strictly requirement that they have to follow. Then we have limited risk. So limited risk is basically talking about transparency obligations like chatbots, deepfakes, and so on. So we also have minimal risk. Minimal risk, these are largely unregulated. These are risks that are very minimal, so they are largely very, very unregulated. So that is there is no legal framework or there is no strict requirement in this regard for minimal risk. So that's basically what the European Union AI Act came to regulate as regards AI. So we also have the US United States guidelines. So ordinarily there is no legal framework as regards AI in the United States, but then there has also been some legal innovations or legal interventions as regards the use of AI in the country. So a typical example is the enactment of the Executive Order 14110 on the safe and secure and trustworthy development of use of artificial intelligence, which was issued by President Biden on the 30th of October 2023. So that's as regards AI, the use of AI in the United States. However, this executive order was repudiated by the governance of Donald Trump, President Donald Trump. So by the executive order of 14179. So that is President Trump revoked the initial order made by uh, President Biden. So what was the rationale behind the revocation? His own opinion was that AI should be left for innovations and American AI leadership and so on. So basically, he's supporting innovations and ethical use of AI. So that's basically why they had to revoke the initial executive order enacted by President Biden. And there are also state laws. So, like we have Colorado state laws, we have California state laws, then we have New York state laws as regards the use of AI in the United States. So we also have African policy efforts. So we say the fact that African AI governance is evolving. So the African Union Continental AI Strategy aligns with Agenda 2063. Countries like Nigeria, Rwanda, Egypt, and Kenya have national strategies, focus areas, job, startups, agriculture, health. Challenges include infrastructure gaps and enforcement capacity. So basically, the advancement of AI in the Africa context too cannot be overemphasized. So we know AI has also come into Africa and people are also making use of AI. So as a result of that, it has to be regulated also. But then there is no specific law as regards AI in most African countries. However, there are policies that are made as regards AI use and ethical use of AI and so on. So, and one of the things we have to note is that ordinarily we know that if even these policies or whatever law that has been put in place to regulate AI, they lack there is what we call infrastructure gaps and enforcement capacity. So that is they are largely unenforceable. So that's basically as regards the use of AI in Africa. That is the laws put in place to regulate AI, the use of AI. So that's why we can even see situations whereby AI will be used to make some kind of illicit videos, sexualize people's pictures and everything. It has been rampant on the internet. So that's showing the slippery slope of the use of AI all over the world generally and also in Africa particularly. So we also have the GDPR principles. So basically, the GDPR principles was enacted in 2018, and as regards the general data protection rights. So the GDPR right is basically talking about the use of data protection. That is the data of individuals, data subjects. These are what we call people that is data subject, that is people that have access to their data, that is people that people's data particularly. So when we are talking about data subject, that is you should have private access to your data and nobody should be able to unauthorized use to have any unauthorized use to your data. So as such, this is what the GDPR principles came in to regulate. So, and I think there are 6 principles that the GDPR stipulates. So we have number 1, we have lawfulness, fairness, and transparency. So when we're talking about lawfulness, fairness, and transparency, this requires that the processing of someone's data, that is the data subject, that is the data of a data subject, have a valid legal basis, and that data subject should be informed of how their data is used. That is, the use of data of any person should be the data subject should be informed if their data is to be used. And we know this is inevitable because one way or the other, either you are registering for something or you want to go for something, you have to like put your data down. And this data can include your name, your sex, your like basically everything, your account details, everything. So there are this is what the GDPR came to regulate as regards data protection. So as such, if any company or any organization wants to make use of your data, it has to be consented by the data subject. That is, you have to consent to it that, okay, we can make use of my data to do this or that. That is to register for this, to register for that. So that's basically, and it has to be lawful, fair, and transparent. So that is, it should not be used unauthorized So then, secondly, we also have purpose limitation. So the purpose limitation basically restricts the use of data to the specific purpose for which it was collected. So, okay, a typical example of this is okay. Typical example of purpose limitation is that when you want to make use of someone's data and the person has consented to it. So for the purpose, but it must be for the purpose you collected the data for. If you want to open a bank, it must be okay. The data you want to collect, it must be for the purpose of the bank opening and not for any other purpose. So there is purpose limitation as regards data protection of individuals all over the world. So that is there is limitation as to the amount of data you can collect as regards anything. Then we also have data minimization. We also have, I'm sorry, we have accuracy. So accuracy requires that the personal data be kept current. That's basically the third requirement. Then we also have storage limitation. So storage limitation restricts retention to the period necessary for the stated purpose. So what this is basically saying is that the data that you collected, then there must be storage limitation, that is for the specific purpose, limited period of time you want to make use of the data and not beyond that. Then we also have integrity and confidentiality from from the people that want to make use of your data. So they have there must be honesty, integrity, and confidentiality. That is, people's data must not be exposed, must not be used unauthorizedly, and so on. So those are basically the data protection rights as provided by the GDPR. So, and we're talking about ethical accountability. So this is the ethics which AI developers must ensure while carrying out their duties, that is, why making use of or why developing AI. So what are the ethical accountability? So we say AI developers must ensure systems are fair, transparent, and responsible. That is, principles include fairness, transparency, and privacy, and human oversight and sustainability. So that is, AI should not be there should not be any slippery slope. What do I mean by slippery slope? That is, AI should not get to the stage where it has to be uncontrollable. Although in theory, but then in practice, it is actually getting beyond control. That is, it is uncontrollable. The use of AI is actually becoming uncontrollable due to the fact that AI is being used to commit all sorts of atrocities all over the world and all over social medias. In fact, there are some videos, and that was what our last mentors in the last class, they were trying to tell us that, okay, how can you even be able to, there are some videos now that you watch, you will not even be able to detect that, is this AI generated videos or these are real videos. So these are something that are used to mislead the public, so and to mislead the public, and there are a lot of unethical use of AI on social medias. So, and this, it has to be regulated. So this is one of the ethical accountability of AI developers, that they have to ensure that the use of AI, it has to be transparent, fair, and lawful. So as such, they should make they should develop it in such a way that it can be controlled. Then there should be human oversight also to oversee the use of AI to ensure that it does not breach human rights or any fundamental rights of any individual. So we also have those are like basically the ethical accountability of AI developers. So they have to ensure human oversight, they have to ensure ethical accountability to build trust and so on. So we have there are challenges also as regards ethical accountability of AI developers. So we say challenges in AI development include bias in training data, black box models that lack transparency, privacy risk from large data sets, misuse for surveillance or misinformation, accountability gaps when harm occurs. So those are basically the ethical challenges. So I think that brings us to the end of this presentation. I don't know if there's any question that anybody wants to ask, so I can answer the question. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Taiwo, for coming out with your group's presentation. Well done to you and to your team for putting it together. We want to encourage you guys to continue in this light, right, so that we can have class that is very insightful and we can get to hear your thoughts on the subject matter and the mentors can give feedback to them. So once again, thank you, Mr. Taiwo. If there are questions, I'm sure Mr. Gabriel would ask those questions in that direction. And well, like I said, other mentees, you can also ask your question like Taiwo demanded. So I'm not sure, is the group sorry, is the group one presentation ready? Sorry if I just want to confirm. Group one, are you guys going to be able to make presentation in class?
Yes, he's on the call, sir. I don't know if he's trying
All
to
right,
unmute or something.
all right. So please, you
Yeah.
should try and share your slides and then start your presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, and please let's stick to time, 10 minutes max, right? Let's make sure we try to get it within that time frame so that we can have enough time for questions and answers.
Oh, we can't hear you. I don't know if you are speaking already. Please, you can try and unmute.
Hello, Mr. Emmanuel, are you with us? Hello, Emmanuel, can you hear us? Okay, I think he's experiencing some network issues. So I don't know what we will do right now. Okay, so that Mr. Gabriel doesn't maybe lose his train of thought in regards to the presentation for group two. So sir, we just want you to probably give feedback to group two presentation while we wait for group one to get fully ready for theirs.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. I hope I don't lose my train of thoughts. I was trying to draft things here, but I got a couple of things. Thank you for the presentation. I think the most important issues have been touched, and probably for the amount of time that was given. One or two things I need to really point out. I think it's something that most people make reference to when we talk about the risk classification of the artificial intelligence. Okay, when we talk about the risk classification of the AI Act, we seem to focus more on the structure or the name than the function. The classification is as per functionality of the system, right? It's not, for example, you mentioned in your presentation that in one of the risk classes, you just mentioned chatbots, and I can tell you that there are chatbots that are not, in that same classification, that are chatbots are split in different classifications. And this now tells us that it's dependent on what the system does. I can give you an example I wrote down here that you have systems that use facial recognition algorithms, right? And if you're using facial recognition just to unlock your smartphone, like you pick up your phone and it recognizes your phone, and then that's a low risk system, right? By that definition. So by the function of that particular system, even though it has the capacity to recognize, to carry out facial recognition, but the function is just so it can unlock your phone for you. So it does not, you can't use that as high risk. But the same phone or the same technology that also uses facial recognition, if it's subsequently used for mass surveillance, for instance, by government, or you install it somewhere in a train station or in a bus station or in a motor park or in a market, it's the same thing, facial recognition. But then for the purpose, the function places it under a different high risk or even prohibited risk sometimes. So when we're discussing the risk classification, you need to think about the function and the context, right? Because again, facial recognition, if I'm using it for my phone and in my house, but if I use that same facial recognition, to access some banking systems, then it puts it up, puts it on a different risk classification. So we need to differentiate that, the understanding. Once we talk about the risk is as per the function and the context of use, right? It's the same thing with data processing. You can collect data from 500 people and process it. There are rules as to how to process it, right? But when the data is now data from children or other sensitive groups, then it's just a different ballgame entirely, even though it's still 500 pieces or, so you need to understand that it's more about the functionality and the contextualization of the use of such systems. The other thing that I think we always mention is that AI is becoming highly uncontrollable. It's a very complicated statement to make, right? Because yes, agreed, it's becoming, to a large extent, you can't really control it. But there's still the capability of the human element to control what the system does. If you remember what the picture I showed in my presentation, just think about it. There's the algorithm, there is machine learning, there's the algorithm, right? There's data, and there's the machine learning capability. Now, the machine learning can only happen within the context of the data that is provided, right? So if I build a particular system and say, I train a chatbot with two of the books I have written, or if I train a chatbot with the Bible and the Quran, as an example, if I start asking, except there's other instructions on the internal parts of the algorithm. But if I train a system with the Bible and the Quran as an instance, and then I start asking it to tell me about Donald Trump, it's not going to tell me anything, because the data with which it has, the available data for its training doesn't talk about Donald Trump. So that's the one way of thinking. Can I determine the output of a system at the point of data collection? Yes, you can determine that. Now, the problem is that we now believe, or most of the big capitalist companies now believe, that the more data we can feed on the system, the more intelligent the system is. So we just throw it into the internet and we tell it, whatever you find here is valid data. And that's where because you cannot now control what data it picks from the internet. You cannot control what questions somebody is going to ask it. You can place guardrails to a large extent, but they jailbreak these things now, right? So when you look at the data perspective, yes, it's a little bit, not really true to say we can't control it, because again, no matter how complicated a system is, it's always garbage in, garbage out. The problem now is that people now dump in a lot of garbage, or you just tell it, go to the market, whatever garbage you find is cool. And then you say, oh, we can't control it. Of course, because you told it, I don't want to control you. Just go there, pick whatever you want. If you tell somebody, I have 15 students in class, teach 15 students, mark 15 scripts. If the scripts are 16, you know that one of it is false. You know that one came from somewhere. But if you tell somebody, go to universities in Nigeria and teach everybody, the person can have 1 million scripts. You can have 2. You can go. So because you've now extended, the capacity of what the instruction for that person. The second part is that the algorithms also, this is a very important thing in the discussion of, ethical issues around artificial intelligence systems. If we continue with the perception that, well, once it's out there, we can't control it again, we can't hold anybody responsible, then we leave that ethical problem of accountability unfixed. And how to fix this is that there's a philosophy book I read in the early 50s, it was written in the early 50s when they started discussing artificial intelligence, and they said the primary principle in the development of technologies is If you cannot control it, then don't build it. If you build it, then you're assuming responsibility for whatever it does, right? Like buying a dog. If you're sure that your dog is not going to bite anybody, then open your gate, it goes out. It doesn't matter. It's not going to bite anyone, it's cool. But if you're not sure, then lock your dog inside the compound. Otherwise, if it bites somebody outside, you are responsible because you should have known, right? It doesn't matter whether you knew or not. So when we look at it from this perspective, then the developer becomes the primary responsible actor when it comes to the outcome of artificial intelligence systems. So generally, when we just say, well, systems are not controllable, it depends on where you're looking at it from, right? If you're looking at ChatGPT, yes, it's not controllable at that point. But there are people sitting down behind it and are telling it, don't say this, don't say that. Okay, you can say this, you can say that. There are thousands of people working behind ChatGPT or the other language models that are being used. So those people are exercising some level of control over that system. And I do not believe that any tech company would be foolish enough to create a technology that it cannot control. I wouldn't do that myself. I write softwares, I build some small language models here and there, but you always have to have a stop switch in case of emergency. So those are the major things I just wanted to point out. There are other things I wrote down, but I think some of them have been covered in subsequent parts of the discussion. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Gabriel. We really, really do appreciate your feedback. You were able to highlight the key aspects of explaining some of the discrepancies and trying to differentiate what was captured in the presentation. Thank you so much, sir. I don't know if presenter for group one is now ready. Please, if you are ready, we would like to have you make your presentation.
Okay, I'm ready.
Yes, all right. Please go ahead and share your slides.
Okay.
And please, if you can keep it within 10 minutes, we'd really, really appreciate it.
Okay. I guys in this slide. Are you guys seeing my slide?
Yes, you can see your screen, but your slides are not yet up.
Sorry, is anyone hearing me? I don't know.
Yes, we can hear you. We can see your screen. We can see your screen.
Okay, I'm coming. Okay, you can see. Yeah, are you guys seeing the both screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay. So real quick, I just got informed about the whole that I was the backup presenter. So and I did not really know because I've been kind of busy. So last week I was in the meeting and we talked about introduction into AI and all. So this week they gave us another topic to talk about ethics, bias, and regulation of AI and emerging technologies. So the introduction, AI like systems have been increasingly influencing decision in hiring, lending, healthcare, law enforcement, and all. Then there's a bias in AI that can perpetuate or amplify social inequities if not identify and manage. Then Fairness is a multifaceted goal that depends on context, stakeholders, and normative choice. Okay, so I just did a quick view of everything. So I highlighted some things. So when we talk about artificial intelligence, oftentimes a perfectly logical brain that makes decision based on the facts that is emerging. But the truth is a lot more hu- the truth is a lot more human than that. AI is not born with its own opinions. It learns everything it knows from us. So what I just try to understand about this thing is AI is like how will I put this now? Like you're building something and most of the information it knows is from we humans. So we are the one that actually creates this thing and we are the one that feed it the data that it uses. So they gave some examples of how AI has been biased. So one example here is if a team develops a facial recognition app but only tests it on friends on a look who might
Emmanuel,
all look a certain way.
hello, Emmanuel. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Sorry for
yeah, I
cutting
can
you.
hear. Okay.
We can see your screen, but your presentation is not up.
Oh, let me. Okay, I'm coming.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Are you seeing the screen on? Are you seeing the presentation?
Yes, we can see it now.
Okay.
But can you expand it so that we can see it better? Yes, it's clearer now, much clearer.
Okay.
Yeah, please go ahead.
You're seeing it now, right? Clearly.
Yes, we can see it clearly now. Please go ahead.
Okay, okay. So um, they gave an example of how a team developed their friends, and those friends they like look in a certain way. Some may be black, some may be fair, and also the app was naturally great at recognizing those faces. But when someone with like a different skin tone or a different eye shape uses the app now like made a mistake. So this like happens in our present world. We show the AI or we train this AI with like very little amount of information, and it did not really get to like um how will I put this now? It did not really get to explore um other faces, and it did not really get to be fed with a lot of faces and all. So it had an effect in it. So another thing they gave an they said AI bias is not a computer glitch that we can just patch up quickly. Then I just highlighted something so we can be seeing it. So this sometimes the math itself is a trap. How we might tell an algorithm to feed the cheapest way to find the cheapest way to do something, thinking that it's a neutral goal, but the cheapest way might involve ignoring certain neighbors or targeting people who are more vulnerable. So blind to even if you try to be blind to race or gender by taking those words out of the system, the AI is clever. It look at things like what music someone listens to or when they shop and uses those as a proxy to find out who they are anyway. It finds a backdoor to the very bias we try to look out. So they gave an example of research on examples of bias hired tools and facial recognition errors. So um, one of the example was Amazon AI recruiting tool in 2014 to 2017. So what happened was Amazon trained an AI to evaluate job applicants by analyzing resumes submitted over a 10-year period, because the large data that was actually fed to this thing was mainly male dominated, and the algorithm tried to learn, and the algorithm learned to prefer just male candidates. So what was observed as a bias was the system penalizes resume containing terms associated with women, including women chess club captain, graduate of women colleges. As a result, the two systematically downgraded female applicants. So another one is the higher view video interview algorithm consign. They developed an AI software that evaluated candidates using facial expression, tone of voice, word choices, micro gestures. So in 2011, they discontinued its facial analysis component after the widespread criticism. So another example was the algorithm bias in resume screening, facial recognition bias and error rating, gender the gender shade study MIT lab, then NIST facial recognition vendor test, then wrongful arrest due to facial recognition errors. So these are just examples of how AI has been a bias. Then also the structural cause of bias in AI system, the bias training data. AI models learn patterns from historical data sets. If those data sets reflect social inequalities, algorithm replicates them. So another one is the lack of demographic diversity in data. Data sets may underrepresent women, dark skin, certain ethnic groups, people with disability. They result in poor model performance for those population. Then opaque algorithmic design. Many AI systems operate as back blocks model, making it difficult to detect bias during deployment. Then emerging regulatory response. So several jurisdictions are beginning to regulate this response, like the European Union. The European Union Artificial Intelligence Acts classify AI system used in hiring and biometric identification as high risk system require strict oversight. Then United States, such as New York, now require bias audits for automated hiring too. So they gave us like a source for this research. Then key governance lessons for AI system from a policy and governance standpoint. Three safeguards are increasingly recommended: algorithmic impact assessment before deployment, diverse and representative training data sets, independence, bias audits, and transparency requirements. So these measures are becoming the standard recommendation in AI governance and frameworks globally. Then they gave 5 ways to reduce bias in AI system: diverse data. One primarily strategy is to mitigate bias in AI algorithm is to ensure diverse and representative data. AI system learn from data, and biased data can lead to biased outcome. To prevent this, organizations should use data sets representing the diversity of the population they serve. Then data pre-processing is another critical step in mitigating bias. This involves cleaning, preparing the data before it is used to train the AI models. So, for example, if we're anonymizing data, can prevent the AI system from making decisions based on sensitive attributes like race or gender. Additionally, techniques like resampling or reweighting data can address imbalances in the data set, ensuring that underrepresented groups are adequately represented. Then algorithm design and selection, then human review, then transparency. So I think that is all. So are you guys hearing me? I don't know. I've been talking since.
Yes, yes, we can hear you. Yeah, so if that's the end of your presentation, thank you so much for stepping in to present on behalf of your team.
Okay,
We
so
want to say,
so
yeah,
sorry. Like
okay,
I just want to say something. Like I literally just got this information, this like 30 minutes to the um meeting. So I just like had to do a rush up, and I'm going out. So sorry for the way I presented. I know I'm kind of flopping on my voice somehow. So that's what I want to say.
okay, thank you all the same, Emmanuel.
Okay.
So but it is not a platform for perfection. So I would say all of us, we are individually learning and we are sharpening ourselves. So
Okay.
as regards communication, I would want to encourage that, communication is more effective in and amongst members of the group. Please, if at all, somebody, maybe the main group presenter is not available, let effective communication be adopted so that the backups can be notified on time and they can fill in to make presentations in class. So thank you once again, Mr. Emmanuel, and thank you to the
Okay.
members of the
Yep.
plan for putting your presentations together. So back to you, Mr. Gabriel. Any thoughts on the presentation that you have?
Yeah, okay, thank you. Even though the presenter said he thinks he didn't do a good job, I think he actually did quite a good job, especially for for the time, the short time to prepare. It's quite interesting. For me, I think it's a more practical presentation because I think we could easily learn theories, right? But the ability to implement the theories that we learned is a different ballgame entirely. Looking through the presentation, they were looking at real life issues. This has actually happened. This can happen. This has happened, and this is how it can happen. That's what I think this should be about. It's we can always go online and read things about what is bias and how and what is transparency and so on. But until we are able to see where has this happened before, or where are the probabilities that this can happen? If it happens, what can we do? How can we handle it? Which is outside the theoretical conversations about artificiality. So this is, I think it's actually really good. And then I could just add to the recommendations that they made as to how to avoid bias in the AI system. And one of them was human review. Again, forgotten the word for it. Red teaming, yeah. I get the concept from the idea of red teaming, where there has to be diversity in the team working around the system. This goes into the wider structure, not just having human review. How meaningful is the human review? I talked about that earlier. Human control and human review. How human involvement generally, how meaningful. If you pick somebody that is a lawyer and put him in at the back end of ChatGPT and he just sees ones and zeros, and you tell him to review the system, as much as I know, except he has a lot of technical knowledge, he may not be able to understand that system. That's number one. And secondly, if you have a group of humans reviewing a system, the diversity in that group would also reflect in the system, because humans are naturally, we have some level of bias in our natural way of reacting to things. If you hire males, you're going to get different perspectives, and females, if you hire people in a certain age group, you're going to get different. So as diverse as possible. At the back of your mind, know that diversity is just another crazy terminology. You cannot be conclusively diverse, because, for instance, if you say we want to have a language model for use in Nigeria, right? I don't know how many languages you can accommodate. It's just going to be, because we have over 500 of them. Then we start talking about the dialect, or is it a religion? So the diversity in groups, it's not possible to cover, but it's necessary to have as much as reasonably possible. There has to be diversity in the group of the humans that are reviewing. If not, you're going to have the same problem if the system already has its own biases, or sometimes the system is even okay, but because there's no diversity in the red team that is doing the human review, then the system begins to exhibit some biases based on the recommendations of the humans that reviewed it. So these are the things I could pick up, and I would like to look at that the presentation. If it's possible, you could just share it with me. And there are some other things I didn't get, and I think could be quite useful. Thank you so much for your presentation. And if there are any questions, you could ask now or just put them in the chat box. So.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Iman. Sorry. Thank you so much, Mr. Gabriel, for sharing your feedback on the presentation. We will try as much as possible to get Gupran's presentation over to you. So we'll be taking questions now. I guess we have a few questions we'd like to ask. So I think Habib is raising up his hand. We'll be taking questions from you, Habib. And then if you have any questions, you can drop your questions in the chat box. We'll read them to Mr. Gabriel, or you can raise your hands and indicate by raise of hand so that we can call you out to ask your question. But let's go over to Habib. Please, you can go ahead and ask your question.
All right. Good afternoon, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so I actually have 3 questions. I don't know if it's okay to go ahead and ask all. Okay. I'll assume that's a yes. I didn't quite hear you, sir. So, the first question is, I think I'm struggling with the idea of artificial intelligence models becoming black box systems. That is, systems that we cannot quite understand, their processing and how they arrive at decision making. Because I feel like if we think of AI systems as tools that are, entirely designed by humans to respond to human prompts to recognize patterns. I mean, we had a specific, should I say, architectural framework in mind, a framework that facilitates AI's ability to recognize patterns. So my question now is, how does AI actually evolve into that system that we seemingly or suddenly can no longer comprehend? That's my first question. The second one is, I mean, if you look at our presentation from group one, I mean, we talked about things like, okay, the American, United States adopts a kind of, should I say, innovation-friendly approach, right? So it has not developed a single universal legislation for, artificial intelligence technologies in the United States. While on the other hand, the European Union adopts a risk-based approach, right? It's kind of like restrictive in its definition of AI systems. And I think that it raises the question, which one works better, right? Should we adopt an innovation-friendly approach or a restrictive, should I say, law-based approach when considering the potential fallouts of artificial intelligence systems? And I think that I would very much appreciate it if Mr. Gabriel Udo could localize this to the African context. I mean, Nigeria specifically. I mean, in a society like ours, which legislative approaches would be much more preferable? Thirdly and finally, I want to understand how reinforcement learning as a model training approach can deepen or extend subtle biases in artificial intelligence systems. And this is what I mean, right? If we say that artificial intelligence models, I mean like ChatGPT, learn from talking to humans, right? How can this transition into biased AI models that extend what they know of a particular set of human beings to other humans? So what I mean is, okay, if the AI has frequently been talking to white people who probably have more access to artificial intelligence models based on infrastructural availability and things like that, education and all of those factors, does it does it not translate to some kind of, should I say, bias by inference when the same data that the AI model derived from people from a particular society is now used to determine my situation or understand me as a person? So yeah, I'm just asking, is this not some form of bias that's probably unacknowledged in itself? Thank you very much, sir. I hope you understood me.
Oh, okay. Sorry, my microphone got missing. Again, very interesting questions. I will try to take them one after the other. Your first question, I'll give if I miss it, just let me know. Your first question was as to the idea of black boxes. How do we have black boxes? Why do we have a patch that we do not understand, right? That's just a summary of what I understood in the question. Okay. So, all right. I'll give you a live, a living situation, right? When you have children and you send them to school, or somebody has kids and sends them to school, and that school, they only teach mathematics and English, right? So it's limited. Anything the child knows is supposed to be just mathematics and English. Now, that's for small models that are trained in small data. But then the algorithm becomes more complicated. It means you send a child to a school that teaches 50 subjects and the child has to choose. Now, you cannot completely determine what the child has learned in the process. That's a real life picture. Maybe not really what happens. But if you look at this screen, if you can see my screen, Dennis, can you all see my screen?
Yes, sir, we can see your screen.
Great. Now, you see number 1, you see number 2, and then you see number 3. Number 1 is the data. You can control, like I mentioned, you know what happens with the data. In fact, you might even know it to a large extent how data is processed. We know how tokenization happens, how data is crushed into pieces, thrown into models, and then, it's fed back. And then you can also control the people that use the system or what people instruct the system to do. But then inside here, there are algorithms. In number 2 here, you see stuff that look like settings. There are the algorithms under here that first you can design it, determine what it does. It's an instruction pattern. But how the system reacts to that instruction is unknown. It's a mathematical problem, right? You know what you throw into the machine, when you go and wait outside, you can even tell, you can predict the outcome. But how it comes about that outcome, when you write the WAEC mathematics exams and they tell you show all working, it means the examiner wants to follow your train of thoughts. You know the question, you know the calculation, you know the answer. Sometimes you get the answer, but the calculation is wrong. It means the examiner understands your train of thoughts and says, in real life scenarios, if you use this train of thoughts, it's going to fail, okay? Because mathematics is just, it's a structure, it's, a modeling of the actual society. So the thought process, if you ask a child, says, this mango is ripe, I'm going to eat it. Now, he has given you his thought process, why he's going to eat that mango. And then he explains to you that he's going to use a stick to throw at it. So the child has a thought process. There is no black box. There's no point where an explanation is not found. So it's easy. If you followed my presentation at the first one of the first things I said is that transparency is almost impossible. Complete transparency is almost impossible because now the developers do not understand that mathematical process of how it reacts to specific kind of data. That's one. Number 2, when systems are built like large language models that are allowed to scrape the web, you tell it, go to the field, whatever you find, eat. And then it goes to the field and finds something that is not consumable. But because you said, whatever you find on the field, eat. It eats, and it's harmful. So the instruction can create a black box scenario in that you don't know what it can find out there. That's where it's important that the developer should understand ethics, because you know that you can't just tell a system to take whatever information it finds on the internet and to make it available to anybody, because a child then begins to use the system and gives instructions that only an adult should be able to give, right? Okay, so that's why you have the idea of black boxes. It's not possible to totally just understand everything. You're going to have problems as long as we have these systems. You could, to a large extent, control the outcome, control the process, but takes us back to the issue of the concept of autonomy in artificial intelligence-based systems, the ability to just spring surprises at some point. You can control it to a large extent by determining what data goes in, what instructions you give it, but how it processes that is simple mathematics that you can't show working is not possible, right? I don't know whether I answered the first question. All right, I'll just
yes,
go
thank
to
you.
Great, okay. I'll go to the next one. The next one you talked about, yeah, it's a big problem. In the first slide here, one of the problems of policy, I hope I had that here. Yeah, one of the problems here, if you see the second, trying to draw a line here, where we have safety and innovation. You see that? Key policy challenges. One of the biggest problems in regulating artificial intelligence or in determining how artificial intelligence is used in societies is to find that balance. How do we, the Americans say that Europe has over-regulated the field of AI. So they have over almost 100, if not more, regulations around technology within Europe and by the European Union. There are regulations for everything, for medical devices, for social media platforms. Everything is highly regulated, right? Because they have this risk-based approach, and that's like, oh no, we want to be safe. We don't care whether it's a good thing, oh, this can it can save lives, but can it take one life? Yes, then we don't want it. We don't care if it takes one life and saves 100. But on the other hand, innovation comes with risks. If you want to innovate fast, you're going to have to take some risks, right? Now, the question is, how do we replace that balance? I've spoken about this in many places. And one of the things I have found in many of these places is for societies like Nigeria, is that while we rush to adopt regulations, we fail to consider where do we stand in this. The first consideration in that perspective would be, what is our society like? When the US wants to keep the innovation going, they are competing with China because China is just up here. When Europe says, hey, we don't want this, they've had the level of innovation in Europe is just crazy when you compare to what we have in Africa. So they can safely say, okay, we want to slow down. But in Africa, in Nigeria, we don't have, no matter what we tell ourselves, we've not caught up with the rest of the world. So if we begin to have this safety approach to it, this risk-based approach, we're going to regulate even the food that we eat, because in Europe, they regulate food. There are some foods you cannot bring into Europe or you can't buy here. So they regulate everything. But look at a country that has hunger challenges and you're regulating food. It means you're just going to kill people that cannot afford the safe food, right? So for Nigeria, I think, personal opinion, right? It's not a very popular opinion, that while we want to regulate these things, we need to slow down and look at our society. We need to contextualize our governance perspective. What problems do we have? Do we need to solve all of them right now? If in the process of solving them right now, are we going to create more problems? If we don't create more problems, are we going to aid innovation? I think we need to invest first in technology, have this innovation approach for, let's say, for the next 5 years, we're going to innovate, fund projects, have that innovation up to a level that we can say, okay, now let everyone slow down, and then we can go down to the safety approach. That's my opinion. The third question was, you talked about the RL, the terminology. Sorry, I had a meeting that I attended. It was in German, so right now my head is swinging between languages. All right, so you were talking about the fact that when humans have to train the systems, I use very raw terminologies, like in the case of ChatGPT. Reinforcement learning is from people constantly using the system, and there's a reward, there's a penalty, and so on and so forth. And your question, or my understanding, was that when we have the same people that are on the positive end of the bias, also reinforcing the structure of the system or reinforcing information on the system, then it just keeps reinforcing the biases that are already there. Absolutely right. And this is why I say that training is important. We also need young people back in Africa that use the system, also correct data, because you can't blame them for saying, there are people that are born in Europe and believe that in every African society, people live with monkeys. I've met them in person, right? People have asked me, oh, do you people play with lions? You can't blame them. That's the structure. That's what they have been taught. That's where, until they travel or until they get into some kind of education that allows them to learn new things. There are some that are people that are just naturally biased, not even just in Europe, even back in Africa. I've seen people write into ChatGPT that there are 3 languages in Nigeria. Not 3 main languages, 3 languages. And then somebody confirmed that. And the person was from one of the major ethnic groups in Nigeria. And I had to ask him, what are you sure you don't mean? He said, no, the others are dialects. And this is an educated person. The guy has a PhD and he doesn't know the difference between a dialect and languages. So I had to sit down and train him on that. Again, you cannot, as long as the system is using reinforcement learning, takes us back to the issue of black boxes. You do not know what people decide to teach the system. So you cannot totally tell what the outcome will be. The only way to avoid biases that come with reinforcement learning is if you control the users of the system, first of all, or you have a backup check system. So it doesn't just, the reinforcement doesn't go directly into the main cluster of the system. The reinforcement goes first. There's a human check-up system to be sure that, okay, when you say Donald Trump is the president of Nigeria, somebody sits at the back and says, nah, this is not true, and removes it. So another person asks who is the president of Nigeria. The system does not say Donald Trump, right? Reinforcement learning, there should still be humans at the back end to verify some of the information. Maybe not all, but there are some that are just outrightly untrue. So I hope I've been able to answer your questions. I'll stop sharing my screen now. Thank you.
Thank you so
Dennis?
much. Thank you so much, Mr. Gabriel, yes, I can hear you. Thank you so much, sir, for helping us run through those questions. We really, really do appreciate. We would like to know if there are more questions. I think we can take a few more, right? If there are more, let's know so that we can address them. And if there's not, then we can start drawing a curtain on today's class. So, any other person with a question? Okay. Okay, since there is no indication, firstly, I want to say a big thank you to Mr. Gabriel for being present in class. Your presence reinforces to us the fact that AI is an important concept, and this part of the world we really need to catch up with it. You have shared from your multiple dimensional level of research and study. I'm just breaking down into very simple concepts for us to really understand, and we want to say a big thank you for that. We want to apologize to the mentees on behalf of our other mentors who are supposed to be in class. They are currently indisposed, like I said, and they said their greetings. So we'll try to work on making it more convenient for them subsequently, maybe not even in this session, but in future sessions where we can have all the mentors that we expect to be in class on ground. So once again, thank you, Mr. Gabriel, and thank you to every mentee that was able to come into this session. Just before we go, right, for those of us that are available to turn on our videos, I would like us to do that quickly. Let's take a quick picture of today's class, and then we'll draw the curtain on the session. So please, if you can, turn on your videos. Let's take a quick picture, right? Or let's take quick pictures, right? And yeah, we'll done. Okay, thank you, Mr. Adekunle. Can we have more mentees respond? Let's quickly do that so that we do not waste so much time just on pictures. Mentees, can we hear me? Let's turn on our videos. Let's turn on our videos. Please, let's quickly do this. Okay, I want to assume that where we currently are, or the places where we may find ourselves currently at, may not necessarily be the most convenient. But irrespective, thank you everyone who was able to comply. Yes, so with that, we come to the end of today's session. For the mentees, please make sure to share what you have learned on a different social media platform. You can tag Mr. Gabriel. Let's the world knows that you are learning from this space and you are learning from him, right? And also fill in your attendance for those who were in this session. Make sure to fill in your attendance. What else? Okay, if I'm forgetting anything, I will let you know in your group. So yes, with that, goodbye everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day, and yeah, bye bye. Thank you once again, Mr. Gabriel.
Thank you, Sam. Goodbye, Sam.